Hi, my name is Alexandra, and I'm a practicing holistic empowerment coach. Welcome to the Awaken podcast. I want to talk about trauma today, and the perfect person who I have to join me is Theoren Fleury.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining me. I would like to talk about trauma, addiction, the potential of the relationship and the relationship to ADHD. And talk about some strategies with you based on your experience of healing and the wisdom, the pearls of wisdom that you've pulled out from that journey.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, like you said, a lot of people don't realize, first and foremost, they have trauma. And then secondly, when you start to peel those layers of trauma, there's more trauma underneath the trauma, so there's so many layers. And so, discovering all those layers and then, changing behaviors, changing, how you do life differently is, what I've been doing for the last 20 years. And when you experience trauma, you're left with, emotional pain and suffering. And it's silent because nobody can see it, right? When you break your leg, obviously you can see it. But when it comes to emotional pain and the scars are left behind from traumatic experiences, your body, is in that fight or flight response. And so how do you deal with this pain that nobody can see? Well, you tend to gravitate towards the dark side of life and get involved in addictive behavior as a coping mechanism to suppress, the emotional pain and scars left behind from trauma. And, what I've discovered is that trauma is at the core of every single issue we have in society. It starts with trauma. And then you pick your poison as to how you're going to deal with this for the rest of your life. But eventually, you hit that proverbial rock bottom and then, you start to rebuild your life from there. And so basically that's, what I've been doing.
What I want to know from you, just to start before we get into the nitty gritty, is I'm just going to tell people what you've accomplished in your life.
Okay, sure.
Because you're an amazing person.
Thank
you're really very inspiring. And I know Theo as really he's a powerful speaker, an advocate for mental health awareness, particularly with the world of Canadian sports. Your personal journey has been one of immense, and this is how I see you, of personal strength and resilience.
Yes.
I think the resilience is so key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Having experienced sexual abuse from a coach early in your life, as someone who's lived through trauma, you have been an outspoken advocate, speaking out about it, and the lasting impact it has on young people.
100%.
But I want to talk about your hockey career, just to show people, many people may not know you here. And you are like you had an unparalleled career as a hockey player.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
You started in, 1988? Is that right?
89.
89.
Yeah.
And didn't you lead the Calgary Flames to
we won a Stanley Cup
that year?
Rookie year, yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. And you've played over 1,000 games. And you're adding more to this list because you do it in your pastime.
Yeah.
And what I have here are the stats, is that you have scored 364 goals and 466 assists for people who like their stats, and also won a gold medal during the 2002 Winter Olympics. Today, you are a successful entrepreneur and business person and a motivational speaker. And that's where I first heard you in one of your talks. And you have a business called Fleury
14, Fleury 14 Enterprises,
Yeah.
So,
and you've raised money for causes such as colitis and
everything,
and Crohn's disease. And to add to that list is an author of what I love this title is Playing with Fire, that you published in 2009. I want to just segue from that. And my question for you is, Playing with Fire. Theo, how did you, with such an extraordinary career and just wild success, what can you attribute that to in you? What was it in you that got you where you were in your career?
Yeah. Well, geez, it's such a long story, but, for 27 years, I was carrying around a secret. right?
Yeah.
And so I really wasn't living an authentic life, right? Because I was, they say you're only as sick as your secrets. Well, here I was, sick physically, emotionally, spiritually, because I was carrying so much guilt and shame and anger and resentment and, you name it. And when I retired from hockey in 2003, all I had was a grade 12 diploma from Vanier Collegiate in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and then I had more than half my life left to live, and I had no idea what the rest of my life was going to look like. And, I didn't really know if I had any other skills other than, being a hockey player, because I'd spent the first 40 years of my life trying to perfect my, my craft. And so having had this very successful, professional athletic career, I didn't know, what the next, 40, 50 years held for me. So fortunately enough, in Calgary, we have one of the best alumni associations in all of the National Hockey League. And so I got involved with the Flames alumni shortly after I retired. And the first event I went to was a golf tournament that we have every year. And I run into this old media guy that used to cover the team when I played there. I hadn't seen him in 10 years. And the first thing he said to me, he says, "What are you doing these days?" I said, "I'm doing absolutely nothing," right? And so we kind of go back and forth, make small talk, and I don't know where this question came from, but I said, "Do you know anybody that'd be interested in writing a book with me?" And he says, "Funny you should ask." He says, "My wife is a writer." And I was like, come on. And then 3 days later, we started writing Playing with Fire, my autobiography. And, when I sat down to write the book, the only thing I was going to talk about was my hockey career, right? I wasn't going to talk about my parents. I wasn't going to talk about my sexual abuse. I wasn't going to talk about my drink log and my drug log. I was just going to, talk about my hockey career. But early on in the process of writing this book, this lady who I was writing the book with, she made me feel safe, and I trusted her. And as soon as that happened, it was just like I was just vomiting all over these pages. And 3.5 years later, we finished the book, and I tell the whole story from start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the book writing, the process of writing the book was part of your healing journey.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I did was I stepped into my authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? And, they say that authenticity is the highest vibration, right?
Absolutely.
And so, that's where I was. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into, I just kind of took a leap of faith.
So this was the first time you actually came out and shared with the public about the abuse.
Yeah. In many ways, shape, and forms, right? So there was some abuse when I was a, young kid. Yeah. And that kind of set me up for, the pedophile abuser. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom was a prescription pill addict. And so, I gravitated towards hockey very early in my life, because if I was at the rink, I didn't have to be at home dealing with all this insanity that was going on in my house, right? And everything that I wasn't getting at home, I got at the rink, right? I got love, I got people looked after me, I was really good at what I was doing, so I got admiration and all those things. And so, being a really kind of ultra-focused kid, I knew from the time I was 6 years old that my journey, my path was going to go through the NHL. And that's what I basically focused on for the next, 35 years of my life was, I want to be a professional hockey player.
So you had a really clear vision
that
you committed to it at such a young age, which would explain your success.
Yeah, because I knew that was the way out.
Yeah.
Right? Because we grew up really poor, there wasn't a whole lot of money around, it was a really difficult situation, but I knew that there was an opportunity where I could create, a new path, a new life, all these things, and so.
And you knew that at a young age. How old were you?
6. Yeah, like I would walk around my little town and tell people I'm going to play in the NHL.
That's amazing.
Yeah, seriously. And
that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and then I read a book by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell called The Outliers. It's really a book about guys like me. And basically what he said in one of the chapters was, if we want to be the elite of the elite of the elite in whatever field we choose, we got to put in 10,000 hours of practice.
Wow.
And so basically at the beginning of my, hockey career, so to speak, at 6 years old, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was working my way towards those 10,000 hours because when I wasn't at school, I was at the rink, skating, shooting, passing, over and over and over again. And so what I did was I trained myself to react. Because in my sport, if I got to think about where I'm supposed to be on the ice, I'm in big trouble because the puck moves faster than I can think. And so from the time I was 6 until the time I was 16 years old, I put in 10,000 hours. So I became an expert in hockey at 16 years old.
That's amazing.
Right?
So then what I hear from you, Theo, is that it becomes a body. So it's no longer coming from the mind.
No.
It's like
It's repetition.
a body memory,
Yeah.
cellular memory. You were getting that in over and over again.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's almost part of the healing process, is about replacing the old, limiting, very painful messages that we give to ourselves, the debilitating, the undermining messages we give ourselves. You just repeat it over and over again. You can replace it with what you want 100%. Instead of what you were delivered to.
Because, the brain is, can be retaught, right?
Yeah.
Has that neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
And so you can, retrain your brain. And so when I stepped on the ice, I didn't have to think.
You were a natural.
Yeah. It was just, a natural
That's amazing.
ability that I had. But,
Well, just thinking, just coming back, what did trauma play as a role? So that we can see, I guess.
Yeah.
We can see how the trauma was affecting your choices and decisions in life.
Yeah, 100%.
That brought you to where you are today.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I always say trauma is my superpower now, right? Because, and from a spiritual, perspective, God gives us adversity to get to resilience, right? That's the gift in this whole process is, without adversity, you don't get to resilience. And resilience is the gift because once you have the resilience, then, it's like bring it on. Like I'll figure it out. I'll get through whatever I need to get through because I have this, this resilience. And, I think I had it really early in my life. I had resilience, right?
Yeah.
Because if you read the book, Playing with Fire, there's, I always overcome the greatest obstacles in my life because I had adversity early on in my life, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's beautiful.
And a lot of people can't make that connection, and they stay in the adversity for their whole life. They, they love the labels and all this stuff, right?
I'd like to get into that with you, to talk a little bit more and unpack that a bit. Is the whole mental health lingo that's out there that people banter back and forth quite casually.
Yeah.
And if I bring that back to trauma, I think that the source of that is
100%.
a total identification with a weakness instead of a strength.
Yeah.
And what I would like to talk to you about is if we've gone from that personal kind of description of what trauma and how you transformed it, that's the sign of a warrior or someone who's willing to face themselves, is to take the monster and make it an ally.
Yeah.
And I would like to get your perspective at a higher level around collective trauma.
Yeah. Well,
and we can see it playing out in our world.
Oh my God.
So obviously
it's
right now.
Yeah, it's like right. It's right here.
All the time.
All the time.
And if I could just add here, it's in my own experience, as well as what I see happening in the world, is an identification with the victim.
100%. Oh, yeah.
So it's total victim consciousness.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Victimhood. I was there for a long time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Pour me another drink. You know what I mean? Right. And, but yeah, that emotional pain and scars that are left behind from trauma, emotional is mental illness. That emotional pain and scars, that's your mental illness. Because your nervous system is so messed up because you're producing large amounts of cortisol all the time that cortisol is like acid in your body, and it starts to fray the nervous system, right? And if you don't have relationship, right? Because I wasn't, I was taught by my parents that you just yell and scream at each other all the time, right? And so we also produce, when we're in healthy relationships, a drug called oxytocin, which is the drug of love and connection. And so I was not, for a long time, producing any oxytocin at all, except when I was on the ice, right? Oh. You know what I mean? And then the oxytocin's job is to go in and suck up all the cortisol so that your nervous system calms down. And for a lot of us who live in fight, flight, fawn response, our body's natural healing mechanism cannot work when you're in that space. And that's where I lived the majority of my life, was in that fight or flight response, right? So never was able to heal anything because I couldn't calm myself down.
Yeah.
Right. And so, realizing that first and foremost, that the relationship that I neglected the most was the one I had with myself. Right. Yeah. And then when I stepped into that and started looking after myself, loving myself, taking care of myself, right, giving myself that hit of oxytocin, my nervous system calmed down, and then my natural healing system kicked in, right? Okay. Where I was able to, heal a lot of the, emotional stuff that, that I experienced in my life, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that, and I'd like to talk about that. But the first question I have is, what was it in your life that it was like an event that occurred? Was it an event that occurred that woke you up to the realization, I need to change, I need to make a change? Yeah.
Well, I had a failed suicide attempt, I don't even know how long ago that was, probably 22 years ago. And I had a gun in my mouth and fully loaded, ready to pull the trigger. And right at the moment of truth, when it was time to pull the trigger and end my life, this little voice spoke to me and said, you've never quit anything in your life. Why are you quitting now? And that allowed me to take the gun and, throw it away. And I had two choices that day. Was I going to live or was I going to die? Well, I chose to live, but guess what? I have no clue how to live life on life's terms. All I know how to do is cope. Whether I'm happy, sad, mad, or glad, all I know it's a feeling, and I know how to make it go away, right? And so, for a long time, I could never identify how I felt, right? Because I had suppressed so much stuff. And then, having this, anger and rage problem, well, where's the best place to do that? I could do it on the ice.
Absolutely.
Right? And, the best anger management class I went to was called the NHL, right? Because I'd go out on the ice and beat the shit out of somebody, go to the penalty box, and there wasn't an RCMP officer there ready to put handcuffs on me, but I was committing assault because I had a weapon. I was carrying a stick around, right? And so, it was a great outlet for the anger and the rage, and it's what made me such a great hockey player was I sort of walked that fine line, that tightrope, right? And all the coaches I had coached my anger, right? Because they knew if they got me pissed off, they would get the very best out of me. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Wow. There's a point, on the journey of healing where we go, okay, I need to get help, but
I knew I was going to die.
Right.
I knew that I was going to die. If I was going down, even after the gun incident, I still kept going, using all of my coping
So that was
mechanisms.
my question is like, was there still resistance to getting the help 100%. You needed?
Yeah, 100%. Because I had no tools.
What did you do? How did you, so
it was funny.
Who came into your life to help you, wake you up?
Yeah. So I moved back to Calgary in, I think, 2004 to be with my kids, right? Because they were all here. I was actually living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, of all places. I went to a trauma treatment facility there and, fell in love with the place. And they had great recovery there. And, they had a friendship center where they had a meeting every hour, on the hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Yeah. And got my first sponsor there and, worked through the 12 steps and all that stuff. And my oldest son called me one day and he said, "Dad, what the hell are you doing? You need to go. You need to come back home. I need my dad, my brother, my sister. We need our
How
dad."
old were they? How old was he?
My oldest was 16 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I packed up everything and put a for sale sign on the front lawn and drove back here. And me and my oldest son got a place together and we were living together, but I was still completely gone out there, right? Mm. And then I got into this new relationship with a girl. And, for the first 6 months of our relationship, we partied together, right? Mm-hmm. And then one night, we had this horrible argument. And I was left in the washroom on my hands and knees. And, I punched like 7 holes in the wall. And I was completely distraught. And then, I remembered having a conversation with one of the old timers in 12-step. And he said something incredibly profound to me after a meeting one night. He said, "Do you realize in this program, they get to pick your own God?" And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? Pick my own God?" Because my experience with organized religion was, as a kid growing up, I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church, where I was taught that 5 minutes after I came out of my mom's womb, I was a sinner. And if I could muster up enough courage to go sit in the confession booth and tell the priest all the bad things that I did, he'd give me a few Hail Marys and Our Fathers, and then I could go back out and do it all over again. Thursday nights, I went to my mom's Jehovah Witness Bible study, which is like a cult, right? Yeah. And so when he said that, I was like, yeah, I don't want any of this. I don't want any of that. So, what is this God of my own understanding, right? So here I was in this washroom, completely distraught. And I knew that if I kept going down the path that I was going to die this lonely, angry, bitter, resentful death. That's where I was headed. The addict's death, right? Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was better than that, right? What I was showing the world at that time, I knew that I was better than that. And so I reached out to this God of my own understanding, and I hit my knees in the washroom, and I went up one side of God, I went down the other side of God. I called him every name in the book that I could think of, made up a couple of my own, and then I said, God, I realize you only give me as much as I can handle. I said, I'm full. I said, you can't put one more thing on my plate. And then at the end of the conversation, I said, please, God, take away the obsession to drink and do drugs. And I went to bed. And then the next morning I got up and, I was severely hungover, probably still high. And I was heading to the washroom. And in my house at that time, I had to walk by this big mirror in the bathroom. And as I was rubbing the sleep out of my eyes, I glanced and I stopped dead in my tracks. And here I was staring at myself in the mirror, and I can't remember the last time I looked at myself in the mirror because I hated myself, and I was so full of shame and guilt I couldn't even look at myself in the eye. But here I was standing in the mirror. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes goes by, and I'm like, geez, I feel different. And then another 20 minutes later, I go, holy cow, my prayer's been answered. And that was September 18th of 2005, and I haven't had a drink or a drug since.
Oh, wow.
Since that, yeah. And that was the turning point right there.
There's something there about my theory is that the barking dogs at the front of the cave of the journey into the wound. There's barking dogs there, and they won't stop barking until we're ready.
Yeah.
And so I think that's very interesting when working with individuals, is just being very cautious about that, about where they are on their journey. And demonstrating a patience and understanding that you can't rush the process, if you like.
Well, and, the first step is I'm powerless and my life is unmanageable.
Yeah.
The second step came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened, right?
Who was the God you were speaking to that morning?
I have no idea. Still don't know.
Like, is it something in you?
Yeah, I would probably say that's what it is. But, I do believe that there's some entity out there who's, controlling a lot of it. But, really what happened that night was I surrendered. And
There's the key.
And I turned my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him.
Beautiful,
right?
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I can't run my own life. Because left to my own defenses, left to me running my own life is the biggest shit show on the planet. And whenever I drive the bus always crashes. So that night I moved comfortably into the passenger seat and said to God, you drive the bus, and whichever direction you point me in, I will never question from today, for the rest of my life, you are running my life. And since that has happened, all of this amazing stuff, post-hockey career, has happened in my life.
So what steps came after that, though, for you, Theo? Like, there's the awareness, the surrender, knowing that you can give your life over to another power that is going to help you and serve you much better than you trying to do, which I get it.
The perfect example is the story of, how do I run into a media guy?
Yes.
Right? And then this creates this whole, what does the rest of my life look like? Well, writing the book turns out this is what the rest of your life looks like. It's helping other people get to where they want to go.
So then, did you have like any mentors, or talking about like your mentors, your counselors, your teachers, the practices, like what therapies did you use? Can you say a little bit about that?
Well, I've spent $1 million on therapy. I've done every kind of therapy known to mankind because I wanted to get better.
Yeah.
So after I finished the book, I was getting ready to go to Toronto to launch this book, like in the media mecca of Canada. Like I was going to, and I told this dirty little secret, okay? So I was shitting in my pants. I was so scared because I had no idea how everybody was going to react to what was in this book, right? And I also knew that I was going to go do a whole bunch of media surrounding the book. And I knew that the media's sole intent would be to focus on the gory details of my sexual abuse, right? So, because I'm a very smart and bright guy, I spent 4 days on my computer researching every single thing I could find on the subject of child sexual abuse.
Oh.
Because I wanted to get a story of hope and healing and recovery out to the masses. And I had a big platform, right?
Yeah.
So I go to Toronto. First 4 days I'm there, I do 300 interviews. TSN, Sportsnet, every magazine, every newspaper, every morning
I didn't think that was
TV
humanly
show,
possible.
radio show. Oh yeah, like I was going 24, like no sleep, like I was doing everything. And, just like I predicted, the only thing they were interested in was the gory details of my sexual abuse. But, I'd spent 25 years in the media being interviewed every single day by reporters. So I knew that didn't have to answer their questions directly.
Yeah.
And I had an arsenal of facts and, stats and percentages and all this stuff. And so I was throwing that out there, right? So that I could avoid talking about, the dark room and where I was molested, right?
Yeah.
And so I got this incredible message out of, hope and healing and recovery and all these great messages. So then the next thing on the docket was the first book signing. And my expectations were really low. I'm like, nobody's going to read this book, It was like, I'm not Wayne Gretzky, I'm not Mario Lemieux, Marc Messier. I had a great career, but, not like that. So I fully expected to go to the bookstore, sign 10 books, go to the next town, sign 10 books, so on and so forth. So I walked through the front doors of the bookstore, and there's 400 people standing in line with my book, and I'm like, the hell are all these people doing here? Like, I didn't expect this, right? So I sit down at the book table and I start signing books, start meeting people, taking pictures, having brief conversations. And then out of the corner of my eye, I spot this guy in line. And he's got my book clutched against his chest and his face is buried in the floor. And, one of the gifts of trauma is you become an empath.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You're very attuned to energy. And for some reason, this guy was like, it was like just like my whole entire focus went to this guy. And he's got my book and, his hair is greasy and his sweatpants are dirty, his t-shirt's ripped. And I'm just like, wonder what's up with this guy. So I follow him all the way in the line. He gets to the front of the line, puts the book on the table, looks me in the eye, and says, "Me too." And that's when I knew what the rest of my life was going to look like.
Wow.
Because I said to myself, I'm like, by me finding the courage and the strength to tell my story, I can help other people do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then, went right across Canada on a book tour. And that's when I got run over. Because every book signing, 5, 10, 15, 20 people were coming up and saying, "Hey man, I read your book. You told my story. Me too. Hey, I read an article in the newspaper, read an article in a magazine. You told my story. Watched your documentary. You told my story. Me too." And then I started speaking and doing, talks and all that stuff. And that's what I've been doing for the last 17 years is just, talking about trauma, mental health, and addiction and how it's all connected. Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. The question that I have for you is, have you had to go through the fire numerous times, even while you're fulfilling your purpose?
100%. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop. It's like the peeling of the onion, the metaphorical onion just continues.
Yeah, there's so many layers.
And there's so many layers.
So many layers, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you choose a lifetime of healing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what it is. It's a lifetime commitment.
Yeah, like, we're so programmed that there's a magic pill that's going to cure this mental disorder that I have.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're giving people synthetic brain chemistry, which is absolutely insane. Nuts, right? So then, I'm an Aboriginal person. I'm Métis. And so the first community that called me was the Indigenous community. Can you come and speak in our community about what happened to you? Because in their community, they have every kind of problem that I have, they have it. What was interesting was I was supposed to be there to help them. Okay? Well, guess what happened? They reversed it. And they introduced me to Indigenous spirituality. Yeah. Right? And, what I was told was that the grandmothers, the grandfathers, and the creator left a whole bunch of tools behind because they knew that we were going to need them to heal. And those tools, are smudge, sweat lodge, powwow, sundance, drum, rattle, all of these things. And so I started to pick up these tools. And my spirituality went from here to like the next level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. Right. And I started hanging around with medicine men and medicine women and shamans and, elders and you name it. And they started teaching me about true spirituality. And, I've been in that community now for, 20 years.
I know for myself that I've experienced one of their practices, which is called a sweat lodge, but I did it in South America.
Yeah.
So it was a Temescal. And so I went through an ego death, and it was profound. I mean, I've done so much work and practices, mine being more of a yogic journey.
Yeah.
But when I went into, and again, I had to be ready for that though, Theo.
100%.
It's like, again, it's like when you surrender to the path of listening to our higher selves or to God, it's like, as you said, life brings the steps before us. Yeah. And that was just given to me because I was ready.
Yeah.
But I wonder about you in terms of what practice or therapeutic tool has helped you.
Sweat lodge.
It's a sweat lodge.
Yeah.
Oh, so fascinating.
I tell people all the time, if I ever become Prime Minister of Canada, that's the first thing I'll do is I'll build 1 million sweat lodges in Canada. Because they're so powerful. Because I feel as close to God in a sweat lodge than anywhere else on the planet.
So it is going into the fire. So I'm just coming back to that idea of when we go through the fire.
But when you sweat, you're cleansing your whole entire body. So you're getting rid of all of these toxic chemicals and stuff that we're around all the time. And when I leave the sweat lodge, it's like somebody tattooed an S on my chest because I feel so incredibly powerful and close to the source. Right? And the thing about Indigenous medicine is it hasn't been tampered with. It's in its original state. So it has the right frequency and the right vibration. And to me, on my healing journey, that's where it's taken me, to frequency and vibration. That's where, right? Because in the sweat lodge, we're chanting, we're praying, we're increasing our frequency and our vibration.
Beautiful.
Right? That's why I feel so good, is because when I'm in the sweat lodge, my frequency and vibration gets the volume turned up.
Beautiful.
Right?
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason why I'm saying that is because that's been my own personal journey.
Yes.
I used mantra.
Yeah.
And when I went into a retreat for a full year to heal, it was the mantra, the repetition of the mantra over and over again that lifted my vibration, allowed me to move to the next level of healing, which meant to be okay with whatever was given to me or directed or, thrown at me.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about frequency and vibration because, as you know, I work with a tool called audio EMDR, and it's using sound vibration, sound frequencies. But you have done the EMDR. You shared that with me before.
Yeah, I've done it all. Yeah.
How did you find that?
It was a game changer.
That was a game changer.
It was a game changer for me. Yeah. And I did it in Santa Fe at that treatment center. That's the first time I did it, and it was a game changer for me. Because
I think what it does is it unlocks the memories, right?
It taps into your unconscious.
Yes.
All those files that you've locked tight, they all start to, right? Yeah. And then through the process of EMDR, you get to be the director of the movie.
Right. Yes, nobody telling you, you're not working. Yes.
You get to be the director of the movie because you open those files and then you put something really good in there and then you put it back in there. So you don't get triggered as easily as you once did because that memory is been erased.
It's astonishing, isn't it? And what I feel so sad about is the fact that most people have this locked place in themselves, that they have all of the defense mechanisms put up to prevent them and others accessing those.
Anybody who's under the misconception that, healing is fun, it's hard. Like, it's really hard. And it takes a certain kind of person to be able to sit in their own shit.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because in my second book, we actually have a chapter called Sitting in Your Shit. Right? Because if you can sit in your uncomfortability and not use the old coping mechanisms, that's the profound healing part. Is I could sit in uncomfortability. Right?
And I think the biggest discomfort is feeling the emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's feeling the anger. It's feeling the grief. And we have not been taught in our culture, in our families. And of course, in our families, we have the opposite, is don't express, don't tell me how you're feeling, and just rage instead of taking responsibility. And I would suggest that this is the healing journey really is about, it's the first step is I'm taking responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
for my life.
They say that trauma lasts for 7 generations, and then the 7th generation steps in and heals the previous 7 generations.
Yeah. I know in my own family, generationally, what I know about my lineage is that you have to keep the family secret. So what I mean by that is in my family, there was sexual abuse, pedophilia, and the family was told not to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? So keep silent. And so what I'm doing in my work and in my own personal journey, most importantly, is undoing all of that ancestral
100%.
Silencing and lies and pain.
Yeah. Well, and look at the world we live in. It's all about secrets.
It's all about secrets and lies.
Yeah.
We're living
and manipulation and coercion and, all of the characteristics of a classic pedophile. Yes. Manipulation, coercion, lying, stealing, cheating is the mantra of the pedophile. And silence keeps it all in place. Right? So when you step out and blow the whistle and expect that you're going to get support, not going to happen. Because that's been my experience.
That's what I wanted to talk about next. Because I know when we first met and sat down together, we were both expressing how 2020, and a lot of people around me were in pain. And in a sense, waking up. Because they started to recognize the patterns of their personal abuse taking place on the world stage.
100%.
And I wonder if you can, because I know we get triggered. It's like you say, it's peeling the onion. I know for me, that was a major trigger where I had to work once again with my rage at the system. This like in terms of my own, was with my own father, the pain. But here now projected out, we have the external authority as a patriarchal or a masculine, an authoritative system. Doesn't have to be man. I don't mean men. I mean it because it's still women. We had.
Of course.
What was your experience in 2020?
So, I was getting ready to have my busiest year of speaking ever. COVID hits and everything shuts down. And of course, we all went along with this, this thing, right? Because we didn't know, right? And everything stopped. So I fell into a deep, dark, ugly depression. Stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped showering, could barely get to the bathroom. I was having suicidal ideations, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like I've done 10,000 hours of therapy, and here I am. Here I am, right? And my wife's looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. I go, I don't know what's wrong with me. So I book an appointment with my EMDR therapist because that's what I use now. Instead of cognitive behavioral therapy, I go right to the source, right? She says, explain to me what's going on with you. And I go, well, I'm in an ugly place again. And so, I started to explain to her what kind of I was going through and whatever. And she says, stop right there. She goes, tell me what your pedophile abuser used against you. I was like, manipulation, coercion, lying, stealing, cheating. And then the light bulb went on. I was like, oh my God, the government is using the exact same tactics that a pedophile abuser is using to. So that was the trigger. That's what triggered this whole thing. I started to get asked to be on podcasts because everybody was podcasting, right? Yeah. So I told the story about my depression and where I was at. And as soon as all those podcasts hit the airwaves, my phone blew up. And people were messaging me from all over the world saying, oh my God, thank you.
Because you were speaking up and saying what was happening for you.
They go, thank you for explaining to me what was going on with me because I am also a survivor of trauma.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know I wanted just to ask you a couple of more questions and about ADHD more particularly. And
the ultimate superpower.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an example of that in what you've done with your life.
Yeah.
And what do you think it is for people with ADHD that's preventing them from accessing the power, the superpower?
Fear of failure, fear of, being judged, fear of, right? Because as soon as you get a label attached to you,
I know
people
identify with it and use it as a way to stay weak.
Yeah. But also
but
also other people judge.
Yes.
Right? That's the reason why people don't speak up, is they're afraid of judgment. Because we're supposed to be a certain way. Right? Everybody's supposed to fall into this, certain way. Well, no, I have trauma, so I'm not like you.
Yeah.
Right? I always share this story that, I was a very bright kid early on in my life. And I would get my work done fast in school. Wow. And then the teacher would expect me to sit in my seat for 8 hours a day. Impossible for somebody who has an ADHD brain.
Yeah.
So I was always in trouble. Always in trouble. Because I got my work done. And then I'm bored. So what do you think I'm going to do? Well, I'm going to disrupt the class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And pardon my French, but, ADHD label means that I'm absolutely fucking brilliant.
Yep.
Brilliant. I think on a different level than everybody else. Problem solve, you name it. I can figure it out pretty quick, right? It served me well in my profession, what I was doing. Because I was able to process information really fast.
Yeah.
And being a small player, right, I needed an advantage. Because from a pure physics perspective,
yes,
I'm 5'6", 150 pounds. And I'm playing against guys, on average, who are 6 feet, 200 pounds. So a foot taller than me and 50 pounds heavier than me. From a pure physics perspective, I'm not supposed to have success. But because I have this brain, I realized that I could beat a person psychologically. Just by looking at them in the eyes, I knew your character within a millisecond. And I was willing to die in order to win. And I knew the guy I was playing against, he wasn't willing to do that. And when you get that kind of power, I can take that guy anywhere on the ice and do whatever I want to him because I know there's going to be no pushback.
Yeah.
So I intimidated guys who were bigger than me.
Oh my God.
Right?
That's extraordinary.
Right? Because...
like when you say you're willing to die, what do you mean by that?
Willing to die to win. Yeah. I'll do anything. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll get cut in the face, teeth knocked out, broken noses, injuries. I don't care.
Right.
Because I want to win. And I want to beat you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's the game. Right? That I got to take your will away to win. because that's what I get paid to do.
Right. So you're really exemplifying the warrior aspect.
Yeah, 100%.
You were definitely that on the ice.
And that's the reason why I had success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because everybody told me when I was growing up, you're too small. You're never going to play. You're too small. You're never going to play.
Well, the healing journey and what you've been through over the last 20 years, you're playing hockey now.
Yeah.
Do you play hockey the same way?
No, I'm just out there for exercise now.
Okay.
Yeah, that piece is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't need it. I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I've turned that back over to God. I'm like, all those things that I didn't like about myself, right? You know, step 6 is humbly asked him to remove all my shortcomings. So I'm like, God, you can have all this stuff back because I don't need it. Doesn't serve my purpose, right? And as long as I'm following his direction, he'll take all that stuff. He'll remove those character defects, right? You know?
Yeah.
And
What would be your advice, considering my audience are most likely people who have symptoms of ADHD, what advice would you give them?
Well, find the superpower in that. When you look at everything through a trauma lens, which we should be doing, there's so many gifts that come from trauma. So many gifts. But because the world tells us there's something wrong with us, that's the barrier that keeps it in place. The victimhood keeps it in place. When you should really be journeying towards what is the gift of this label that I have? What superpower does it give me? And then celebrate it and embrace it and talk about it. When I say to people, my parents were a gift in my life. My sexual abuser was a gift in my life. People are just like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Well, they truly were a gift in my life because if I didn't have those experiences, I'm not in this space talking about how trauma affects people, right? So that's the gift in the pain and all the suffering, right? Adversity builds resilience. That's the gift. Resilience is the gift.
Actually, in the spiritual teachings, that's one of the first premises is that we need adversity in order to evolve into our spiritual potential. And it's the grit in the oyster shell that makes the pearl.
And we live in a world today where we prevent people getting to resilience.
We create excuses in our culture for them not to do it. For them not to do their own work. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
You know?
I would actually just, going to the school system and talking about structural trauma, I know in my own experience that I had traumatic experiences in school. Yeah. Because I was different. Yeah. Right? You know that.
And they picked that out on you and they...
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
So I do hope for a change in our educational system to start honoring the gifts that each unique child brings to the table and accommodate that. I know a lot, in my own experience, I've seen a lot of moms and dads become what are called helicopter parents. Really, I think also it comes down to the parents and the overprotectiveness and not allowing a child to
build resilience
within the container and safety of the family, but to experience pain and suffering without wanting to fix it.
Yeah. Well, what are addicts and alcoholics really good at? We're really good at collecting enablers. Because the more enablers we have, the longer our behavior can last. Right. Because we know that no matter what we do to these people, they're going to pick up the pieces, they're going to pick us up, dust us off, bail us out, all these things. But eventually, we make the enablers sick from our behavior. And then they got to go work on their own stuff. And then we're left to our own defenses because there's nobody to bail us out. And then we hit rock bottom because we have no more enablers.
It's such an interesting dynamic, which allows for each person to get in touch with their pain and heal at some point. Yeah. Wow, this has been amazing. What's your, Theo, what would be your last word?
Well, find out your authentic self, step into it, and embrace it and celebrate it. And, because we're all unique, right? We're all individuals and we all have gifts. And you just got to find out what your gift is, right?
Find out what your gift is.
And there's more than one gift.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my God, yeah.
You're
an example of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, just, be authentic.
Yeah.
Be authentic.
And that's not something that just you can snap your fingers and happen, but it seems like there's something about facing the difficult emotions. Like, to me, that was
But they're temporary.
Yes, they're temporary.
They're temporary, and they are a sign from God that something's not right in your life. That something needs to be, I don't know if I use the word fixed, but reimagined in a more positive way, right? Yeah, it's ugly and it's
messy.
It's messy.
Dirt. It's really messy. People don't like mess.
No, but it's part of the process.
Absolutely.
So embrace it.
Yeah.
Right? Embrace it. And at the end of it, you will have a greater understanding of self.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's why we're here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
God gives us these experiences so that we can overcome them, so that we can then teach other people how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we do more of that, we can heal the world.
100%. Yeah. Instead of, fighting and divisive and all that stuff, we really need to come together as
absolutely.
in a God conscious way. That's been so lost. That power greater than yourself truly is powerful, right? It's like, the amazing grace. I was lost and now I'm found. Well, the reason why I'm found is because I hit my knees and I surrendered.
Yeah, you got down on your knees.
Yeah. And
asked for help.
Asked
for help.
Yeah, and then gave up control.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't need to have control. I don't want to have control.
Yeah.
I don't have that much power.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you. That was powerful. Like I said, this is a journey of awakening. I love this way, this term, this word, because awaken is about awakening to who we really are. And it sounds like that's what you've done. It's like there's about something big about self-accepting ourselves.
Yeah.
And we awaken to who we are, that superpower within us.
Yes, I am flawed.
And that God conscious in us. And even the nasty parts.
Yeah, I'm flawed, but those flaws are actually superpowers. Once I really dig deep and get into it, I realize.
And make friends with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
not all bad.
It's not.
It's not all bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Theo. I want to just give you an opportunity just to say a little bit more about where people can find you, what services you might be offering now, anything that you can that you'd like to share.
Yeah. So theofleury.life is my website, and I'm on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, at theofleury14. And, I speak, I do workshops, one-day healing conferences I do, do a little bit of one-on-one coaching as well if people are struggling and need a good coach. And then, I moonlight for a couple businesses where I do some business development for them and, connect people, right? That kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Yeah,
for
my
being
pleasure.
Here. Okay.